All right, all right, guys. So, we're gonna be doing Psychology 2E, Chapter 12, and this chapter is gonna be the chapter on the social sciences, or the social sciences within psychology. So, what we're gonna be covering on this chapter is gonna be conformity. We're gonna be covering situational factors. We're going to be covering dispositional factors. We're going to be covering errors. We're going to be covering just a lot of social interpersonal interactions within within the community that we'll experience. I like to look at psychology as a lot of terms that we've pretty much experienced, but it's something we haven't conflated a term to what we experience. It's just something that we know is how I view psychology. So, but let me stop the yap and let's just dive in. So, social psychology: how does the presence of other people influence behaviors of individuals? Trayvon Martin, 17, was shot to death at the hands of George Zimmerman, a volunteer neighborhood watchman, in 2012. Was his death the result of self-defense or racial bias? That question drew hundreds of people to rally on each side of the heated debate. So, pretty much this was just about a kid that got shot for wearing a hood, and people deem this as, is it racial discrimination? What evokes this evil? What evokes this stereotypical encoding within the human mind? A lot of things of that sort. So let's just dive in. So what is social psychology? Social psychology deals with all kinds of interactions between people, spanning a wide range of how we connect, from the moments of confrontation to the moments of working together and helping others. Social psychologists believe that an individual's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are influenced by social factors, interpersonal topics, emotions, attitude, and the self and cognition. Interpersonal topics helping behave, aggression, prejudice, discrimination, attraction, and close relationships, and group processing and intergroup relationships. So, interpersonal, we learned that in the last chapter. Interpersonal is mainly just describing your emotional state, while interpersonal is mainly describing a social state or your social cognition within a group, or within a friend, or with a couple, or just someone else. Okay, so let's go to the next chapter. So, like I said earlier, situationalism. So it's the view that our behaviors and actions are determined by immediate environments and surroundings. So situationalism is going to be defining something based off external factors like the environment. So an example can be that, oh, I lost a basketball game. It was because I was pressured by everybody sitting on the bench yelling my name. My over anxiety. I have hyper anxiety. Maybe my optimal threshold was surpassed, and then I got too shaky and jittery. While dispositionalism is mainly the opposite. Dispositionalism is mainly trying to attribute a problem, or maybe even a positive effect towards your inner feelings, like, oh, I'm smart. Oh, I did this because I'm like this. I did this because this is my emotional state. I did this because of this. So, let me also read it. The view that our behavior is just determined by internal factors, attributes of a person, such as personality traits and temperament. So, yeah, personality traits, temperament, environment, factors, things of the sort. It's favored in the U.S. and used by personality psychologists, while situationalism is used by social psychologists. Modern social psychologists ought to consider both situation and individual, which you're not a psychologist, but you should emphasize situational factors and a lot of situational and individual factors, or situational and dispositional factors, because honestly, I do it often, and it can create a sense of empathy and a sense of understanding, and maybe a sense of rationality towards why a person that could have done something. But it is kind of hard when you're being impulsive. So we'll get into the first era, which is the fundamental attribution era, the tendency to overemphasize internal factors as explanations and attributes for behaviors of other people, and underestimate the power of the situation. So this tendency, the fundamental attribution era, can be things like emphasizing personalities and temperament and emotion. Like, say, if what I heard. I'll give an example that I heard. Say if I was driving and someone cut me off on the road, and I was just like, "Oh, you're a piece of crap. Why the heck would you do that, bro? Why would you cut in front of me?" And I don't emphasize maybe some sort of situational or external factors, such as maybe they're going to the hospital, maybe their wife is in labor, maybe they have a bruise, anything desperate or anything in an emergency, in a dire situation. So next is a Quizmaster study, which participants were randomly assigned to play the role of either questioners or participant. Questioners develop difficult questions which they know the answer to. Participants answer questions correctly 4 out of 10 times. Participants tended to disregard the influence of the situation and wrongly concluded the questioner's knowledge was greater than their own. So maybe if you were in the quiz study, you'd say that, this person's smarter than me. They're more intelligent than me because they're getting these questions right, rather than, the questioners made up the questions. Of course, they're going to understand that. Of course, they're going to know what the answer is. They literally made it. So, next, we're going to go to, is fundamental attribution error a universal phenomenon? Researchers suggest that people from an individualistic culture have greater tendencies to commit the fundamental attribution error. People from collectivist cultures, such as some Asian cultures, are more likely to emphasize relationships with others than to focus primarily on individuals, focusing on others to provide a broader perspective, including both situation and cultural influences. So basically, this is saying that a lot of the collectivist cultures, Asian cultures, sort of emphasize situational factors and internal factors, and they also emphasize cultural and temperament factors. While activities, and this can be from activities such as preparing a meal, hanging out, playing games, and engaging with people in a group. And these are just some models showing about fundamental attribution errors. So also, this isn't in the chapter, but what I've kind of catch with this fundamental attribution error is a lot of times if you develop a kinship with somebody, you're going to try to form a more rational sense and say that your friend did this because of a situational error, rather than if you were speaking to a stranger and didn't develop that kinship and that intimacy and that affiliation with that person, you'd most likely assume, there's some internal factors and maybe there's no situational factors. So next is the actor-observer bias. The actor-observer bias I view similar to the actor-observer error. Wait, did I say it wrong? Fundamental attribution error. Similar to the fundamental attribution error, I view the actor-observer bias pretty similar. It's a phenomenon explaining people's behaviors are due to internal factors and our own behaviors are due to situational factors. We often make this fundamental attribution error because we don't have enough information to make the situation explanation about a person's behavior. However, when we explain our own behavior, we have more information available and are more likely to make a situation explanation. One study investigates reasons that male participants gave for why they like their girlfriend. Actor observer bias is evident when the subject explains their own reasons for liking girlfriend, her personality, versus their impressions of other reasons for liking a girlfriend. So what actor observer bias is, let's give an example for it. I'd say that actor observer bias, like I was stating in the other previous chapter, that we're going to emphasize our internal factors. We're going to have more knowledge of our internal factors and our emotions for dire moments. So we're going to say that, I'm justified. I was doing this because of this. While this other person, you don't know if there's a situational factor. So what we automatically do is we sort of automatically conflate this sort of internal factor and this other action that they performed, and say that, they're the bad person. They just did this, without trying to think, is there an external factor? Is there a reason why they did this? Like I said earlier, a lot of us do this when we're not thinking rationally, and some people don't do it at all. But it's best to really hone the skill, because it could cause you to develop that kinship and to develop an understanding, and maybe to even further your interpersonal intelligence. So, let's go to the next one. So actor observer bias and fundamental attribution error. So, but I say to sort of distinguish or demarcate them, the fundal attribution era is more emphasizing the internal emotions without attributing things to the environment. While in a situation where someone does something and actor observer bias, you emphasize your internal feelings because you know what you're doing is justified and you don't know what the other person is doing is justified. That's really the difference between actor observer bias and attribution. So self-serving bias. Self-serving bias is a tendency of an individual to make credit by making dispositional internal attributions and for positive outcomes, but situational or external attributions for negative outcomes. So what this teaches is that in a game you're gonna say that you achieved something positive, or maybe you're playing a video game and you end up winning and get a reward that maybe some people could get, and they're gonna be like, "Oh, how did you do that?" And you're gonna be like, "Oh, it's just skill. It's just skill." Instead of saying, "Oh, bro, the game's easy," or "Oh, I played this game. I played this game like 15 times, or I did this stage 15 times before I played the game with y'all." And then a sort of an example of an example of the internal or situational factor for negative factors is something like, "Oh, y'all are watching me. It's because y'all are watching me. I got the pressure on me. Oh, this game, the plug, it has a short in it. Oh, I'm lagging. Blah, 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 that." You'll hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm lagging when playing a video game," to make a situational excuse and say it's not skill or it's not because I'm just trash at the game. But okay, so attribution, a belief about the cause of a result. So we have three things that we use in the self-serving bias. The self-serving bias contains locus of control, stability, and controllability. Locus of control just explains if we can control what happened, the positive or the negative. Is if it's an internal factor, if it's a situational factor, if it's a dispositional factor or a situational factor. While stability pretty much outlays or tries to portray that, oh, we could achieve this again, we could achieve this positive thing again, or we could achieve maybe this negative thing again because there's a hindrance behind that negative action or that negative finish, or there's a thing like, oh, maybe I trained and maybe I could maybe I trained on the game and I could do this level again and easily complete it and prove that it's actually an internal factor rather than an external factor, or it's an external factor rather than an internal factor. And controllability is just having the ability to control the circumstance. And if it's an internal factor, you're going to be able to control it. And if it's not an internal factor, you're probably not going to be able to control it as well. So an example is when our team wins, we make attributions such as its talent, internal, works hard, stable, and uses effective strategies, controllable. When our team loses, we may say that the other team has more experienced players, external, the other team has played at home, unstable, and the weather affected our team's performance, uncontrollable. So the just world hypothesis is basically simply the world has karma. That's literally how I'd like to summarize it. So will we get what we deserve? Are we gonna get, if we do this action, will we get karma for doing this action? If I drop kick an old lady, will the world strike me down and will I fall and get paralyzed or something? That's pretty much what the just world hypothesis is. So a consequence of a tendency to provide dispositional explanations for behavior of a victim or blame. So the just hypothesis is a belief that people get the outcome they deserve based on the belief of the world is a fair place, and therefore good people experience positive outcomes and bad people experience negative outcomes. It allows people to feel that the world is predictable and we have some control over our lives and outcomes. People who hold the just world hypothesis blame people in poverty for their circumstances, ignoring the situation and cultural causes of poverty. So an example can be if I say that the Africans are just poor, they have no incentive, and they always want to fight each other. Oh, I wonder why the Africans are poor and want to fight each other and have abundance of turmoil within their states. and are combating each other and killing their own people. I wonder why that happened. Definitely not because of colonialism. Definitely not because of materials within the area that people want to extract. Definitely not because of avaricious dictatorial leaders. Nothing of the sort. So let's go to the next slide. So in social roles, everybody has a social role. As me and probably you watching this, maybe you're not. Maybe you're not. Everybody has a social role. A social role can be something like being a student, which I'm a student. I'm also a son to two of my parents. I also play the role of a friend or a best friend, and I'm also playing the role of a brother to my sister. Maybe you're playing the role. Maybe you're watching. Maybe you're playing the role of a teacher. Maybe you're playing the role of a student. Maybe you're playing the role of a sibling. Maybe you're playing the role of a mother or a father. Everybody has these social roles that we hear. Everybody has these social caps. Some of us have multiple social caps or social role hats that we put on. So social norms is a group expectation that's appropriate and acceptable behavior to members. How do we suppose and behave and think? How are we expected to talk, and how are we expected to wear? So obviously with social norms are sort of subliminal, subconscious, sort of norms that we have. These kind of like not prohibitions, but these sort of norms that we just that it kind of is just instated there that we just have without saying it or without speaking on the matter. So scripts is a person's knowledge about the sequence of events expected in a specific setting. How do you act when you walk into an elevator on the first day of school? In a restaurant, scripts vary between cultures, important sources of information that guide behavior in situations. So actually, ironically, we covered something exactly like this. With scripts, we use our, what was it? Not our role, it was, we use our event schemata or our event schema, which is pretty much just going to be, I want to say hindsight bias. It's pretty much just going to be our prediction on how something's going to happen. Pretty much. That's really all a script is. It's sort of this subconscious reasoning that we have for how a script's going to go. So maybe you might have that innate feeling that, oh, someone's going to do this, someone's going to say this, someone's going to perform this action next. And you're going to, that's pretty much just a script. So young people struggle to become independent. At the same time, they are desperately trying to fit in with their peers. This is a representative. See, like a lot of what this actually was talking in the next chapter about how there's inundation between models being skinny, and it can cause food disorders like bulimia nervosa and anorexia nervosa. Next chapter. So Philip Bardo actually created a Stanford prison experiment, which this prison experiment seems pretty interesting. There are movies about it from what I've heard, and I will be watching a Stanford prison experiment movie, definitely, because I really want to get more in depth to how this experiment went. But demonstrating the power of social roles and social norms and scripts, a mock-up person was constructed, and participants, male college students, were randomly assigned to play the role of prisoners or guards. In a very short amount of time, the guards started to harass the prisoners in an increasingly sadistic manner. The prisoners began to show signs of severe anxiety and hopelessness. The 2-week study had to be ended after 6 days. Social norms required guards to be authoritarian and the prisoners to be submissive. Scripts influenced the way guards degraded the prisoners by making them do push-ups and removing privacy. Parallels abuse to use guards in Abu Ghraib prison. So, the Abu Ghraib prison, which I haven't watched yet, so don't hold me accountable for a lot of the things I say. Take it with a grain of salt. But from someone else's video I was watching about the Abu Ghraib, they said that pretty much the Abu Ghraib is pretty much just the Stanford prison experiment on steroids, which a lot of them, from what I've heard, from what that person said, they said that there's a lot of sexual activity, a lot of homosexual activity and intercourse to sort of degrade the Arab men in a way and sort of just cause huge detriments psychologically. So yeah, if you want to watch that, then there's probably some videos up there, but I'd say discretionary advice, honestly. So attitude is our evaluation of a person or an idea or an object that can be positive or negative and influenced by external factors or internal factors that we can control. So your affective component which is going to be your feelings, your behavior component, which is the effect and attitude on behavior, and your cognitive component, which is the belief and knowledge. So I like to picture this as the reciprocal determinism sort of hierarchy, sort of triangular or triarchal little diagram thing. I like to picture like that because we have this affective component, which our affective component is going to be our emotional state. And then our affective component is obviously going to affect our behavior component because your emotions are probably going to incentivize your behavior. And obviously we know behavior is more physical and our emotions are more internal. So your affective components are going to incentivize your behavior components, and your behavior components are going to incentivize your cognition, and your cognition is probably going to incentivize your behavior as well. So, and your obviously your cognitive component is your beliefs and knowledge. So obviously your beliefs and knowledge and your emotions are going to have some sort of interpolation, and they're going to sort of reflect your feelings and your behavior. We said that about the reciprocal determinism, about the environment, about your beliefs, and about your cognition. Let's go to the next. So, cognitive dissonance, Leon Fassing's theory of cognitive dissonance. So, he stated that the psychological discomfort arising from holding two or more inconsistent attitudes, behaviors, or cognitions, believing cigarettes are bad for your health but smoking cigarettes anyway can cause cognitive dissonance. To reduce cognitive dissonance, individuals can change their behavior by quitting smoking, change their belief through rationalizations or denials, such as discounting evidence or smoking is harmful. Add a new cognition. Smoking suppresses appetite, so I don't become overweight, which is good for my health. Later research, only conflicting cognitions that threaten positive self-images cause dissonance. Dissonance can also cause physiological arousal and activate brain regions involved in emotion and cognition functioning or cognitive functioning. So I never heard of adding the new cognition, which is probably I'd assume is really just a part of rationalization. A lot of us humans try to discount or create some sort of positive emphasis on something to sort of fade it away or to make it seem more positive and less negative with rationalization. So I'd say cognitive dissonance is just going to be sort of that tension, that discomfortability, that ominous feeling when things aren't cohesive, when something's not connecting. So I like seeing cognitive dissonance as, oh, my father smoked and he died from lung cancer, but my friend gave me a cigarette. Should I smoke it? Like, you're going to have that tension, that cognitive dissonance. You know what I'm saying? From your previous cognition and from your past cultural encounters. So cognitive dissonance, smoking is bad for your health. Cognitive dissonance, remove dissonance tension. I'm a smoker. Research is inconclusive. I'm still a smoker. Smoking is bad for your health. I quit smoking. So removing dissonance can obviously be getting rid of the factor that causes the dissonance, or just rationalizing the factor and depriving yourself of that dissonance, which I don't think, if you're doing something bad like smoking, you shouldn't rationalize it. But hey, if you want to, you want to. It's your life. So justification and efforts have distinct effects on people liking groups, liking a group. A difficult initiation into a group influences us to like a group more. Aronson and Mills experiment. So college students volunteered to join a group that would regularly discuss psychology of sex, 3 conditions: no initiations, easy initiation, difficult initiation. Students in difficult initiation conditions like the group more than students in the other conditions due to the justification of effect. So, persuasion is going to be prominent throughout society. It's a process of changing our attitudes or something based on some kind of communication. How do people convince others about their attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors? We encounter attempts at persuasion everywhere. Persuasion is not limited to formal advertising. We are confronted with it throughout our everyday world. So persuasion can even be on shirts. Persuasion can be on your shirt. Persuasion can be at a library. Bro, persuasion can be anywhere. We wear shirts with logos all the time. That could persuade you to buy something. But like I said, it doesn't have to be just advertisement. You could put stickers on your car like this example, and it could persuade you to vote for Trump or something. That could be a persuasion. Okay, so Next, elaboration likelihood model, which is the persuasion can be taken into two different paths, and the durability of the end result depends on the path. So the central route and the peripheral route, which I will summarize and then I'll read. So the central route is pretty much just the more logical, the more mathematical, the path we're gonna take when we really want to incentivize that person to pick the right thing. Because us naturally we're innate rational creatures, or we're pretty rational creatures. Sometimes we're rational creatures. But we're going to be incentivized by the logic driven statements, by the math, by the statistics, by the empirics. That's what's going to motivate us. While peripheral route is more of the subconscious, more subliminal, more of the cues, the social cues on persuasion. So let me define it. So logic driven, central route is logic driven, uses data and facts, directs route persuasion and quality information, works best with the audience when the audience is analytical and engages in processing and information. So peripheral route is indirect routes, use peripheral cues associated with positive messaging, use characteristics such as positive emotions and celebrity endorsement, result in less permanent attitude changes. So yeah, you're gonna see a lot of peripheral routes, especially throughout throughout advertisement. We see so many times prevalent, so prevalent, so ubiquitous throughout society. We see celebrity endorsement. Next we have persuasive messaging, which can be central route and peripheral route. So motivated and analytical, non-motivated, non-analytical, high effort, high evaluated message, low effort persuaded by cues outside of meaning. So an example can be you're gonna be in a judge. You're gonna be watching Judge Judy or something. And they're going to give you high effort evaluated messages. They're going to give you statistics. They're going to give you the incrimination. They're going to give you what the person said. They're going to give you the facts that the person's done. And maybe they'll even have some in-person testaments, which we did cover on the last chapter, which aren't entirely useful. We did cover that in-person testaments aren't entirely useful because of misattribution and things of that nature. Or what is it? It was misattribution. I'm kind of diverting here. Sorry, guys, but it was misattribution, and it was sort of bringing up a factor that can oppose the opinion. So next was lasting change in attitude. So low effort persuaded and temporal change in attitude, or temporary change in attitude. So foot in the door technique, persuaders get a person to agree to a small favor, do a larger request for a larger favor. Our past behavior often directs a future behavior, desire to maintain consistency. With the foot in the With the foot in the door technique, a small request such as wearing a campaign button can turn into a large request such as putting campaign signs on your yard. So maybe you've heard of the foot in the door technique. They said a lot of people heard of this, but I actually have never heard of the foot in the door technique. It's definitely been put on me before, probably. Definitely been used on me before, probably. And I just never noticed it. But yeah, I'd assume we probably want to stick to that consistency. And if you develop that intimacy with that person, this foot in the door technique can be extremely, extremely useful and extremely, extremely exploitive. So conformity, the change in a person's behavior to go along with the group, even if they do not agree with the group. This was the Ash experiment. The line segments illustrate the judgment, task, and Ash conformity study. Which line on the right, A, B, or C, is the same length as line X on the left? So this conformity study pretty much just in the video that I was seeing, the conformity study pretty much just showed how if one person picks this question, the next person will, which I see often, especially when we answer psychological questions within the Zoom meetings that I have. So a lot of people are obviously going to have that tension on them when they're trying to answer a psychological question or when they're trying to answer a physics question. Because if something, especially for us in Zoom, when we have to write it down, we're going to feel that tension and we're going to feel that negative emotion that's going to be evoked when we answer the question wrong. And we're going to feel this sense of people are going to doubt us. People are going to say we're dumb. People are going to say we're this. People are going to say we're that. People are going to say, I shouldn't depend on this person. So a lot of people, when they have that tension over them, they're gonna put the person who puts the question first is gonna answer maybe A, B, or C, and then you're gonna see everyone else is gonna answer A or B or C. So Ash affect the influence of the group majority on an individual's judgments. In the Ash study, there was one naive subject. The rest were Confederates who purposely gave the wrong answer. 76% of participants conformed to the group pressure, at least once by also indicating the incorrect line. The size of the majority, the greater the majority, and the more likely the individuals to conform. So size obviously equals the more people, the more you're likely to conform to the wrong answer. The presence of another dissenter, which causes conformity rates to drop near zero. The public or private nature of responses. Public responses cause more conformity than private. So a lot of voters for government officials in the United States have a private voting place like this one to sort of reduce that pressure for conformity. Which is really nice. That's really nice that we have that. Motivation to conform. So there's normative social influence and informational social influence. So normative social influence is causing people to conform to the norm to fit in or feel good or feel accepted, which is also is a defense mechanism. Conforming or not accommodation, but conforming can be a defense mechanism, or maybe reaction formation. Maybe you're opposed to the beliefs, but you're conforming just to feel comfortable. So information social influence. People conform because they believe that group is competent and has correct answers, particularly when task of a situation is ambiguous. So like I was explaining earlier, conformity in the Ash effect, you're probably going to have a lot of conformity, especially for someone who you deem as intelligent. Maybe you hear that they have higher grades. Maybe you hear that they get good grades often, so you're likely to conform when they say an answer first, and you're likely to sort of place emphasis on what that person says because you think based on their credentials, they're going to be more intelligent than you or your peers. So that's a good example of informational social influence. People in crowds tend to take cues from others and act accordingly. And an audience is listening for a lecture, and people are relatively quiet and still inattentive to the speaker on the stage. An audience is at a rock concert where people are dancing, singing, possibly engaging in activities like crowd surfing. So, yeah. A lot of people are going to do this. An example that I heard from one of the videos I was watching about this was if there's smoke going on in a movie theater and you see a lot of people don't react, you're most likely not going to react. But if you see people start getting up and leaving, you're going to feel like, oh yeah, maybe we should get up and leave. Maybe this isn't normal. Maybe this isn't just effects. But next, let's go into the next slide. So obedience to change in an individual's behavior to comply with demand by an authoritative figure. The Milgram experiment showed the surprising degree of people who obeyed authority. Participants were told to shock learners, Confederates, or learners is Confederates, if you didn't know, for giving a wrong answer to the test item. Participants believed they were giving the learners shocks which increased all the way up to 450 volts. 65% of participants continue to administer the shocks to an unresponsive learner. Wow. This shows you the basis of conformity, which I did watch a video on this also in that video, which what the person did pretty much was they sort of showed this video of maybe should I pull it up? No, I won't pull it out. I'll just explain it to you guys. So pretty much what happened in the obedience study was they pretty much there was this scientist or there was an instructor which was demanding them to administer shocks if they got something wrong, and basically what the or administer shocks to the Confederate once they got it wrong. So pretty much what the Confederate was doing was he kept the participant kept administering shocks to the learner, and pretty much the participant was kind of trying to I don't want to say revolt, but kind of trying to protest, kind of saying that this isn't right. What about what's going to happen to him? Who's responsible for this? he sounds like he's dying, but yet they still did administer the shocks, but they were protesting. So this can show a sense of obedience or a sense of complying to pressure or complying to a higher authority. So, all right, let's go to the next slide. Oh, where's my mouse? Oh, there it is. Okay. So, group and think polarization, modification, huh? Okay, that is how you say it. Modification of opinions of members of a group to align with what they believe is a group consensus. Groups often take action that individuals would not perform outside of the group setting because the groups make more extreme decisions that individuals do. Members are less likely to express diverse opinions, which can lead to faulty decision making. So, group polarization, the strengthening of an original group attitude after discussion of views within a group. Does your opinion change if you find someone attractive, but your friends do not agree? A lot of that, yeah. Group polarization is definitely something. That's definitely something that's happened. And a really good opinion is a really good example is does your opinion change when your friend thinks someone's cute and you think they are but they don't agree. I don't think your opinion should change personally, but yeah, groupthink is definitely prominent through our society. You'll see a lot of racist groups, like a lot of it. Like let's use the most infamous group, the fascist or the Aryan race, that they literally stole the name of linguistics from, or the name of a whole language from. But besides that, the Indus language. Besides that, yeah, we're gonna see fascists. We're gonna see fascists. If you're in a group of fascists, and if you were raised around people who had the same ideology, you're likely to conform. Although it might initially not seem right to you, you might conform to those beliefs and those notions and doctrines. You might conform to that because it's right. It's a social norm. It's a group think. You know. So if the group thinks that something is right, or you're supposed to have this belief towards people, you're supposed to be an advocate of eugenics. You're supposed to be an advocate of preserving and perpetuating the Aryan race, like obviously if you were born, or if that was in your environment, you'd most likely also, maybe, not saying you will, it sounds crazy that I'm saying you'd conform to being a fascist, but think about their situation. Think about the environment they were in. They deemed that fascism wasn't wrong. So maybe that's why these fascists agreed to it, especially at the state that Germany was in. Germany was in advanced turmoil, like advanced turmoil. They took a lot of, you know what, I'm not going to go into that rabbit hole this isn't a history lesson. So social facilitation and social loafing. Social facilitation is sort of acting at putting more effort when you perform better. Basically, you perform better when there's more people. So it occurs when individuals perform better when an audience is watching, rather than individuals perform behavior alone. Usually, it occurs when people are performing a task which they are skilled or an easy task. However, when people are nervous or less skilled, an audience may hinder rather than help. So obviously, we are talking about optimal thresholds for motivation. If you don't have an optimal threshold, you're probably gonna get that. You're probably gonna get induced anxiety, and you're probably gonna be shaking, and you're not gonna have that better performance. While if you're at the optimal threshold, you're gonna have a better performance. And maybe if you deem an audience should make you stronger, or should make you better, or should give you that motive. Maybe you don't have the anxiety. Maybe the audience just makes you want to perform as good as you can. So maybe if you're in a basketball game or a soccer game, you're gonna perform the best that you can. While social loafing is pretty much the exact opposite. So it's exertion of less effort by a person working together with a group. It occurs when individuals perform and cannot be evaluated separately from a group. Group performance declines on easy tasks. However, when a task is difficult, people feel more motivated and believe that the group needs their input to do as well as challenging the project. So basically what this is saying, social loafing is basically just saying that you're gonna just put less work into something. So if you were ever in school and you were doing a project, you're gonna put less work into something if you believe that your teammates can do the work for you or can do better work than you can. Alexa, stop. Okay, so, and also I want to also give an example of social facilitation. Social facilitation, I'm going to say a meme right now, so be prepared. So social facilitation, I would view that as, oh, my crush is watching me. Now I gotta really do my best. Pretty much. That's pretty much how you can think of social loafing. So prejudice and discrimination in 1939, a sign of Germans occupied the Poland warns no interest for Poles. An African American male drank from a designated color water fountain in Oklahoma in 1939 during the era of racial segregation. As the practice of discrimination, a member of Westboro Baptist Church, widely identified as a hate group, engages in discrimination based on religion and sexual orientation. So, obviously, humans are innately going to have a prejudice in discrimination. I'm not going to lie. So, we're going to have a prejudice and discrimination based off the environment we are around. So, like I was saying earlier, I was proposing a theory, or I was proposing a hypothetical about you being a fascist. If you were surrounded by an environment and forced, sort of, not completely forced conformity, but this really heavy tension to conform, this heavy burden to conform, you're most likely gonna sort of develop these prejudices and these discriminations. So although now it seems extremely stupid that we could discriminate somebody based off some melanocytes or melanosomes in their freaking skin, it's literally just a color. And it's funny because a lot of people literally made pseudoscience just to differentiate races that had literally no backup. But besides that, pretty much prejudice and discrimination. We're gonna have this, but what's positive about this era is we're removing a lot of that prejudice. We're seeing it's prominent. We have a really diverse society, so we're gonna get that alleviation, and we're gonna sort of tone down that racial prejudice and that discrimination because of how diverse our society is now. But I won't go deeper into that, but let's just move on to the next, because this is 42 minutes long. So prejudice is a negative attitude and feeling towards an individual based solely on membership in a particular social group. Stereotype specific beliefs or assumptions about individuals based solely on their membership in a group. So maybe you're gonna have an event schemata. Maybe you think this person's gonna do this based off their race. Discrimination, a negative action towards an individual as a result of one's membership in a particular group. So yeah, prejudice and discrimination is kind of used interchangeably, but how we differentiate them is we just say that that an emotion towards a member in a particular social group rather than a negative discrimination. Actually, honestly, I can't blame people for using this interchangeably. If there is something distinct that you do want to demarcate with prejudice and discrimination, I'm down to hear. But it honestly seems like these are nearly the same thing. But a negative action towards an individual, while a negative attitude or feeling. So that's the main difference. So my apologies. I would never hire nor become friends with a person if I knew he or she were a Yankees fan. Why do prejudice and discrimination exist? Social learning, conformity to social norms. A lot. And social learning can be like, if you're within a group and you have this group that thinks that this is incorrect, that this is wrong, or maybe even your parents influence you to hate these types of people, then you're probably going to have that prejudice and that racial discrimination. Types of prejudice and racial discrimination. So sexism, which is prejudice discrimination towards individuals based on their sex. Common examples include gender role expectations and expectations for how gender groups should behave that can exist in society and on societal level. Employment and education opportunities. Women now have many jobs previously closed to them, that they still face challenges in male-dominated occupations. So yeah, a lot. And speaking on females again, like even males thought that freaking females were inferior and didn't even compose the intellect to possibly articulate any sort of political stance, which is insane. Like, oh my gosh, I see so many smart females, dude. It's insane. Honestly, I think they're really, they could bridge an even greater connection because of their emotional intelligence, honestly. But I'm not up for that debate. So, but I don't know. I just think the definitely the the incompetence with politics is crazy to me. But self-fulfilling prophecy, an expectation held by a person that alters his or her behavior in a way that tends to make it true. Stereotypes, expectations about stereotypes treat a person according to our expectations, influences person to act accordingly to stereotypic expectations, and confirms our stereotypical beliefs. So, self-fulfilling bias basically states that stereotypes and expectation about stereotypes, and it influences a person to act according to the stereotypical expectation, and then this can sort of solidify our it can solidify our stereotypical beliefs. So, if I was to expect an African American to rob a store, and I end up seeing him rob a store, it's going to completely consolidate those stereotypical beliefs. So Rosenthal and Jacobson, disadvantaged students who had a teacher that expected them to perform well higher grades than disadvantaged students whose teacher expected them to do poorly. So this could be maybe the teacher thought that, oh, this student's African American. She can't even configure the absolute intellect that a white woman or a white male could. That's a good example. So conformity bias, the tendency to seek out information that supports our stereotypes and ignores information and that's inconsistent with our stereotypes. So confirmation bias, a lot of us do the confirmation bias. We always ignore things that's not based on our beliefs. A lot of bigots do this. We're gonna ignore things that opposes our belief while we emphasize things that reinforces our beliefs. So, okay, so let's go next. In groups, a group that we identify with or see ourselves as to belong with. And this was actually proposed in the lifespan and development with the generativity. This was proposed that we're going to identify ourselves with the group and identify ourselves with the person because we see that this person holds the same exact doctrines that we have. So we want to pretty much just associate ourselves with them. So if we have that group think, we're going to probably associate ourselves with that person if we have the same group think as them, obviously, and not that group polarity. In-group bias, out-group, which is a group that we view as fundamentally different from us. So in-group could be like maybe me and my group of anime nerds view people who are out of the group as nothing like us, and they watch TV shows and they're like lame, pretty much. So in-group bias is prejudice and discrimination because the out-group is perceived as different and less preferred than our in-group. So obviously, maybe if me and my anime nerds hear somebody talk about a TV show that's really good, we're gonna say, "Oh, that TV show has to be trash. It's not animated. Like it's nothing like anime. Anime is way better." Like that's gonna be our in-group and out-group bias. So forces that promote reconciliation between groups, the expression of empathy, acknowledgement of past suffering on both sides, and the halt of destructive behavior. Scapegoating is the act of blaming an out-group when in the in-group experiences frustration or blocked from obtaining a goal. So, scapegoating. You probably heard of scapegoating before. A lot of people use scapegoating on African Americans. Throughout history, scapegoating has been prominent throughout African Americans. A white male does something, and maybe we'll blame his slave for it, and then the slave will get lynched. Like, I've been talking a lot about African Americans, but there's been there's been a lot of things that have really incentivized me to speak about it. But aggression is seeking to cause harm or pain to another person. Hostile aggression is motivated by feelings of anger with intent to cause pain. Instrument aggression is motivation by achieving a goal and does not necessarily involve intent and cause of pain. typically displayed by women. Communication that impairs the social standing of another person. Frustration/aggression theory. When humans are prevented from achieving a important goal, they become frustrated and aggressive, which is definitely true. I experience this so much when I'm doing physics. When I'm doing math, I always get this frustration aggression. It always happens. It always happens. It's literally inevitable, dude. It happens every time. Every time, dude. But let me stop talking about myself. So, evolution theory. Aggression serves as an evolutionary function. Men are more likely to show aggression. That likely serves to display dominance over other males, to protect the male, to perpetuate male genes. Human males and non-human male primates endeavors to gain and display dominance over other males, as demonstrated in behaviors of these monkeys. Yeah, so obviously us male humans have this dominant trait where we have that higher testosterone, that higher steroid, and higher corticoid hormones, however you want to deem them. But we have these heightened hormones, and we're obviously going to be more aggressive because we want to show what's up to these girls, because we want our female, man. We want our genetic perpetuation. So bullying is repeated negative treatment of another person over time to attempt to inflict harm or injure or humiliate. This can include physical or verbal attacks. This can be psychological. Gender differences. Boys tend to engage in direct physical aggression. Girls tend to engage in social forms of aggression, spreading rumors, ignoring, or socially isolating others. Effects of victims can be depression, mental health, including anxiety and depression, may underperform in school. Cyberbullying, repeated behavior that is intended to cause psychological harm or emotional harm to another person, more commonly in boys, usually in those who have been victims of cyberbullying themselves. And I can also mention an effect that's not listed here that a lot of males will have, which I probably would be vindication. You should just put vindication right here. A vendetta. And vendetta's not good, guys. Don't make a vendetta. It's not good. I learned that from anime, dude. But I probably still am gonna do it. So, Kitty Genovese attacked and killed with a knife outside her apartment building. Resident in the apartment building heard her scream for help numerous times, but did nothing. Bystander effect, phenomenon in which a witness bystander does not volunteer to help a victim or person in distress, based on social situations, not personality variability. Diffusion of responsibility, tendency for no one in the group to help because the responsibility to help is spread throughout the group. Wow, that's insane. I couldn't even imagine that. Not even just sitting there, like, imagine sitting there letting someone get stabbed to death. Jeez, not even calling the police. Personally, I just can understand that. So, pro-social behavior, voluntary behavior with the intent to help people. Altruism, which is people's desire to help people, even though the cost outweighs the benefits of helping. This event of the 9/11 unleashed an enormous show of altruism and heroism on the part that the first responders and many ordinary people. Empathy. Empathy is the capacity to understand another's personal perspective, to feel what he or she feels. Empathetic people make emotional connections with others and feel compelled to help. Altruism is a form of selfless helping, not motivated by benefits. Feelings good after helping is a consequence, not a cause. Helping is self-serving because our egos are involved and we receive benefits. You might think, oh, how is altruism selfish? Well, altruism actually is paradoxically selfish because it gives you that excitation of that emotion. It makes you feel better when you help someone. So actually, altruism can be somewhat deemed as selflessness if you really think about it like that. But what influences who we become friends with? Proximity, similarity, and homophilia. Important components: reciprocity and self-disclosure. So proximity can just be within the proximity or within the vicinity of somebody. If you're within the vicinity of somebody or proximity of somebody, you're probably going to see them often and you're going to develop a relationship. Similarity, people with similar backgrounds, attitudes, and lifestyle. This can obviously get you to break the ice, get you to make some sort of small talk about something you like, and sort of inaugurate a relationship with someone. Homophily, the tendency for people to form social networks with others who are similar. So that's really just similarity. You're going to develop a relationship with someone who's similar. Important components of relationships: reciprocity, the give and take in a relationship. We contribute to a relationship but expect to receive benefits in return. Reciprocity is something that a lot of people want. I mean, personally, in a relationship, I'd also want reciprocity. So, a lot of humans are probably going to want reciprocity within a relationship. Self-disclosure, the sharing of personal information leads to intimate connections. So, if you're going to have those personal dynamics, you're probably going to have that self-disclosure, and it's going to create even stronger relations within a relationship. Universal attractive features: women, physically large eyes, high cheekbones, a narrow jawline, a slender build, and a lower waist and hip ratio. Social traits: warmth, affection, and social skills. Men, tall, have broad shoulders and narrow waist. Achievement, leadership, qualities, and job skills. Matching hypothesis: people tend to pick someone who they view as equal in physical attractiveness and social desirability. And this can be formed from your self-reverence, or pretty much your self-esteem. Oh wait, is this the okay? This isn't the dark triad. 7 types of love can be described as combinations of 3 components. My bad. Intimacy, sharing details and intimate thoughts and emotion. Passion, physical attraction. Commitment, standing by a person. And this is just pretty much the triangle visualization. Romantic love, intimacy, compassionate love, infatuation, facious love, and empty love. I don't know what facious love is. I will here. Let's look up what facious love is, so I don't misinform you guys. So it's passion and commitment, but lacking intimacy. Let's search up an example. So, a whirlwind romance where couples get married very quickly after meeting, motivated by strong passion, but without deep emotional connections or intimacy. So, I'd view this as readily having that passion to connect, readily having that love and that desire. But then, once you guys end up marrying, you realize you don't have that strong intimacy, that strong bond. Next is, according to Sternberg, consummate love describes a healthy relationship containing intimacy, passion, and commitment. What determines whether we are satisfied with or staying in a relationship? Social exchange. Acting like naive economists, people may track the costs and benefits of forming and maintaining a relationship, typically only those in which benefits outweigh the costs maintained. Okay, and that is the last slide. This took almost an hour. So yeah, this is Psychology 2E openstax. I hope you guys enjoyed this recording, and see you in chapter 13.